Yeah, I think we are starting in a couple of minutes. So, hello and welcome to Riga Power BI Meetup Group. And today we have a very special guest, Pascal from K-Team. He will present. He will tell us and show us the really great visual Power BI visual. And yeah, I think it will be very enjoyable. So, yeah, Pascal. So you could start probably. Share your screen. Floor is yours. And if you have any questions, please unmute yourself, ask directly, and or write in chat. I will manage chat and notify you if we have some question in chat.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Can you see my screen?
Yep.
Perfect. So first of all, let me tell you, I'm very excited to be here. I think this is the first time I'm having a meetup session where there's nobody else speaking, which is quite exciting, but at the same time also puts a tiny little bit of pressure on me, but I'm confident that I can handle it. So I'm happy to be here to tell you about a custom visual, which was developed by K-Team Solutions. Before we jump in, just a few words about myself and about the company. This won't take long. So my name is Pascal. I'm the founder of K-Team Solution, which is a company based in lovely Switzerland. The company was founded about 5 years ago, and we focus on business intelligence solutions with a focus on Power BI. Basically, anything related to Power BI is what we do. So end-to-end implementation, improving existing Power BI implementations. Also, I do trainings, which is something I really enjoy doing because I realized that when you teach someone, you actually learn quite a lot at the same time yourself. And because of all these, Power BI projects for different companies, I've seen quite many different reports in the last couple of years. Some very good ones, some not so good ones, let's say. And I've noticed that one of the questions which popped up was always the same, and it was related to comments, because basically in most of the reports I've seen, comments have been missing. But sometimes it's just important for the end user that is looking at the report to also not only look at the visuals, at the tables and all that, but also get an explanation of why the result is the way it is. And sometimes this can only be done, or these comments can only be written by an actual person that knows what happened in the company. So there's different ways how this can be integrated, but I didn't really like any of the native ways. Of course, you could just add a text box and then have a hard-coded comment, which is not linked to any slicers, and you can filter. That doesn't really make sense. But of course, you can also use the table visual or the card visual and do something in DAX, and you can of course load comments from any data source that you can imagine. But what I was missing, and also what of course the clients were missing, was that these comments or these text boxes, they didn't take any or not much formatting. And when you have a lot of texts, it's just important that you need to get some sort of formatting in there so it's easier for the person looking at it to understand what's actually important in the text I'm reading. And this is why I decided that K-Team Solutions is not only implementing reports, but also we started developing custom visuals. And so far, one of them being the HTML text styler is is out there in the market. There is 2 more in development. Hopefully we'll have time to just quickly give you a sneak peek of what they will look like, more or less. But today's focus is really about the HTML text styler. And you will see that this is not only related to text and comments. That was the initial thought. That was why I actually created it, because I was really looking for a solution for comments. But you will see in my presentation that there's much more that you could do with it. Okay, before we jump in, just on this page, a few links where you see where you can find me, how you can reach me. Also, this kteam.ch text styler is where you get more information about the visual. There is an online knowledge base which answers some questions. There's an FAQ page. You can download sample reports, watch YouTube videos, all that kind of thing. Yeah, and actually, yes.
Pascal's short comment from my side. Yeah, this really going to be very exciting because the problem you're addressing, that you know there's a very famous data visualization guy, Alberto Cairo.
Yes.
And Alberto Cairo, on one of his latest presentations I watched, he said that one picture is better than 1,000 words, just in case if you know how to read it, then it's better. And the same with reports. So you need these explanations, and we as analysts must find a way how to add additional hints, explanations, some information that explains how to read this report.
Absolutely. If you are a person that likes to work with numbers, you might be able to, figure out why the result is the way it is by, filtering and drill through and all that kind of things. But sometimes you just need a comment written by a person. But yeah, well, again, you will see in a second that this is not the only thing that you could do with the visual, because when we look at this very page here, everything you see on here is actually just one visual. So all this is packed into one visual, which has different hyperlinks, and some of it is moving text. We have pictures and icons and so on. So just as an example, also on the starting screen of well, I'm not using PowerPoint presentations. I always do. When I say presentation, it's a Power BI page which looks like a presentation. But let's jump right in. Maybe one quick thing, because I said that one visual is already available. So actually you can get it from just like any other visual from the Microsoft Marketplace. So HTML text and then HTML text styler and add it to the report. Okay, let's go. On the first page, this is actually the use case which I described before, that sometimes you need to have a comment explaining the results, because on here we have a simple bar chart where we have actuals and budget, but we don't see why the result is the way it is. So what I did is here, this is actually the custom visual. And on here, we see some additional information. Right now, we haven't selected any of the years from the bar chart, but we have selected a year, and we already get the total actuals, the total budget, and we see that overall we are minus 38, so 38, whatever it is, dollars or euros, below budget. And I can make this is everything in here is dynamic. So when I change the year, not only the bar chart updates, but also the comment. And I think this word test shouldn't be in there but this is my demo, right? So sometimes I test something and I forget to delete it. So this is something that is done by the HTML text styler. And when I select the country, you see that actually I get more comment, and this comment down here could be from exactly this business person that really knows why the result of Switzerland was above budget in the year 2020. And everything in there can be made dynamic. So in this example, I just made the font size dynamic. So depending on how much text you have, you could increase or decrease the font size to your personal preferences. The same thing, of course, can also be done in Report Page Tooltip. And what I would like to do now is really show you how this is done in DAX. So the whole presentation will contain a lot of me explaining or showing DAX measures and explain how all this was done. So sometimes it might be quite technical, but I'll try to, you know, limit the very technical stuff. So let's see what measure we actually have in this visual. So this is the measure, and it looks like a lot of code, but you can also see that everything, and I will just, can you see this well? I'll increase the size a little bit, so hopefully you can see. This looks like a lot of code because also I added comments, which just make it easier for me or the end user that needs to maintain the report to see why these lines were actually added, what the code is actually doing. So let's see. First, we define a variable. The variable is called var, so variance actuals budget. And there we simply calculate the sum of actuals and minus the sum of budget. So this is really our variance actuals budget. Then we have two more variables, and in here you see the first time that we actually combine DAX with HTML. So we define a variable for the positive text. So if the result is above budget, that's the text when the result is positive. And there we use a span style. A span is like an HTML container. So if you want to style something individually, you could add this span container. I don't want to go into HTML details, but maybe that's interesting to know. And then I define the color, so the color of the text. And then this could be defined with RGB. So this 129.1886 would be green. And I combine, what do I want to have green? I want to have the number, which I calculated above, green. And also I want to add, this is also personal preference, but I think it's quite nice if you also add these little triangle symbols or arrows, which point up or down, also indicating that something is above or below budget. Also for, you know, people with color insufficiency, not everybody can easily distinguish green and red. So giving that little triangle will make it easier for everybody to quickly understand how is the result. And then again, we add some hard-coded text. So above budget, and this is where this test is coming from. Let me just delete that. Something about colors, maybe. You see that right now I have this 282 down here is green because this definition here is green. What I can also do, and I just copy it for safekeeping, sorry. In case you don't want to work with RGB, HTML also understands if you just type in green, it might just be a slightly different shade of green. So you saw this green changed a little bit. Then we have the next variable where I define the same thing, but a different RGB code. So a negative result, I want to show red. Red, you know, is a warning color. So whenever something is red, you know, something is not quite right. This is where I need to focus on. And then we have another variable defining which of the two texts, the positive or the negative, should be shown. So I check, is my result above budget, which is good, or is it below budget? Then that's bad. And depending on the result, I take the positive or the negative text. The return means that actually now we are starting with the calculation. So we are done with defining variables. Let's go and start the DAX calculation. So what did I actually show in here in the visual? On the top, we had the selected country. And I start with this U, and the U stands for underline. In HTML, the U is underlined, which meaning everything that follows this U is underlined. And what is it? It is selected value, meaning whatever I have selected in the visual from the country column is displayed, so the name of the country. And if I didn't select anything, I want to display total result, all countries. That means Switzerland is the country we selected. If I select Germany, I will see Germany over here. It is underlined. If I don't have anything selected, it says total result, all countries. Then we want to jump to the next line. This BR is a line break. Just jump to the next row. You see actuals here is on the next line. And then we want to indicate the actual number. So we want the user to see what are my actuals, what is my budget. So we again combine some hard-coded text with some DAX. So again, we calculate the sum of the actuals column. We can add some formatting. This time we want to add 1 decimal place. And then the BR again means please jump to the next line and show me the same thing, but calculated for budget. Right? Actuals, budget on 2 rows. And then again, BR, line break, jump to the next line, and then add the variable, the var text, which is, depending on the result, the green or the red value. So something which is below budget, Spain here is below budget. So Spain turns red while France is green. And then we have a line. So we add a horizontal line, but only if a country has been selected. If no country has been selected, there will be no HR, which is this horizontal line. Now I selected a country, I have this horizontal line. I don't select the country, there is no line. So that's just showing, you know, how you can combine lots of the different DAX functionalities with some HTML and get a very dynamic text box, let's say. And in the end, I add a text from a table. So this text with the actual description is coming from a data source. It could be stored in, well, anywhere it could be stored. I'll actually show an example where text is stored in a SharePoint list, but it could be stored anywhere. And I manually or dynamically change the font size. That's what you can see here. I style this text with a font size coming from a measure. And actually this measure is the one linked to this slicer. So the font size changes depending on what I have selected. Okay, that would be one thing that you could do. Of course, on the report page tooltip page, this is also where I have the visual, which then pops up when I hover over the bar in the visual. This is just another, more or less the same thing shown a bit differently, because also here you have a tooltip which dynamically changes the color. So you can easily see once something is green, the actuals bar is above the budget bar. Green is just indicating this is positive. And also here, there is some DAX calculations combined with comments, which are actually coming from an online source. So when we look at this measure which is used, we combine some calculation with loaded text, and loaded text is from a table called comment P&L, the comment column. And it's quite important that whenever you have comments, that of course, let's look at the data model quickly, comment P&L, that they also contain a date column or whatever you want to link it to. This comment table is linked to dates, so I can slice and dice by year or month or whatever date element I have, and also by country. So basically you can treat comment tables just like any other fact table. Also add the dimensions by which you want to filter, link them into the data model, and you can create some a fully dynamic report which also filters the comments which belong to what you have selected. What else can you do? Here it says select the country from the table on the left. When I do this, yeah, of course, more or less the same thing. I get some additional information. What I was actually trying to do is replace this. This is just the native table visual. Replace this with a better looking table. So let's try to do this step by step. In here, when we look at the measure, it's the same principle. There's some variables, one that calculates the variance between actuals and budget. We have positive text, negative texts. You see here that I'm not using RGB, but I'm using the word green and red. You could also use hex code actually. HTML doesn't really care, it understands all of that. And then I return something, I underline the country. This actually means this /u means stop underlining. So everything that's coming after this /u is not underlined anymore. So that you see the number and the above budget is not underlined. BR line break and then the text depending on the result. So again, if I select Spain, that should be negative red. But I said I wanted to recreate this table. So on the next page, exactly the same measure, but a different result. Now I get all the countries displayed at the same time because the visual also has a category placeholder. So I can slice and dice my comment by the dimension which it is related to. So I just added the country to the category placeholder, and then I get the country or the text per country. So when I remove it, it's like that. When I add the country again, I should get the details per country. But this is not a nice table yet. So then I try to get rid of this line break. All right, so now everything is on one line. That's already a little bit better, but you see, of course, everything should be, you know, nicely underneath each other. That's just simply what we expect from a good looking table. So what we did then was that this is a little bit better. You can actually also create tables within HTML. So when we look at the return, or what we have after the return statement, is a table. So it's an HTML table, which we can style. Here I only styled, you know, how big it is. The width is 450 pixels. TR is the row. There's only one row, but we have two columns. TD is the column, one column, and here the next column. The first column is 230 pixels. Strong means bold. So I could also, instead of strong, use B, and it would still be bold. The country is still bold. Then we want to have what should be bold. It should be the name of the country. And the second column is the text, the result. Still not exactly underneath. You see the arrows here, or the triangles, they don't really line up. So here, just a tiny little change. Actually, now this is 3 columns. First column is the country. Second column is the number. And also you can change the alignment. There's lots of different parameters which you can style in HTML. For numbers, in this case, I wanted to have them aligned right. So of course, when I change this to left, the numbers here move to the left. But that's not what I want for numbers. So these should be aligned right. And then in the third and last column, I have the var symbol, and the var symbol is coming from here. Depending on whether the result is positive or negative, I show this icon and the text, or this icon and the text in green or red. So I'm nearly there. There is only one more thing which I wanted to do. And basically what I wanted to do is replace the name of the country with the flag. Because you also in HTML have this image source, or the image tag. So I added the image tag in the first column. And as the source, I used this web page called Countries of the World. Flags, normal, flags, off, minus, and then the name of the country which is currently selected. So this is also fully dynamic, loading the file from, or the flag from this online source. The rest of it is exactly the same like we saw before. But now, basically, I think that I could maybe even remove this table and just have this one in the report instead, which might be a bit nicer looking. I mean, of course, all that I'm doing here is a little bit over the top. It's just to demonstrate, because really, this is one sample. It's really what you can do is more or less limited by by your imagination. Really, there's really quite a lot that can be done. One thing that can be done, and what I really like, is you can create your very own custom personal KPI cards. I mean, of course, the KPI or the card, the native card visual or the native KPI visual, they're great, and there's a lot of good custom visuals out there which are used for KPI cards. But in case you really want something very specific that just isn't available in the marketplace, you could create your own KPI card or card visual using HTML. So in here again, let's look at the code, or let's first just interact and see that everything in here is dynamic. So the country changes. Let's find something which is negative here. One number is below budget. but we are above previous year. So everything is nice and dynamic. And when we look at the DAX code, it's always, at least for these samples, more or less the same. You define some variables, and then down here below, I again define a table. So basically what we saw, this KPI card is again a table, but this time we just have more rows and columns. We have one row, TR is row, 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 4 rows. And also you might notice that in the table style, this time I didn't specify the number of pixels, but I say 100%. And I'll show you what the difference is. So we have 4 rows and 100% width. So that means 1, 2, 3, 4 rows. And also by not indicating the number of pixels, I can make the whole visual responsive. So it's not a fixed number of pixels, but it's just use 100% of the space you have. Of course, it's not fully responsive because I have hard coded in HTML the font size. So when I define font size 45, this is not responsive. It stays at 45. So yeah, again, this is a table, and the trick is that we have a lot of empty cells. When we think of the table as the grid, we have a lot of empty cells. So in the first row and the first column, we have an empty cell. So when I write test in here, let's just see what that looks like. Now here in this cell that was empty before, I have test, and this is how you can align everything nicely. So I'll get rid of this test again. Basically, for every cell, you define what you want to see in the specific cell. On the next page, I played around with this a little bit, and you can see that, well, these are just some of the examples, right? There is, sorry, not this page, one more page to go. You can also, of course, nicely use it as a tooltip. Tooltip, which is just easy to understand. Green is good, red is bad. Fully dynamic. But here on this page, this is just a bunch of different KPI cards. Some might, you might like one more than the other. This is just to demonstrate that there's so many possibilities. You can define the background color, the border style. You can also add an image, emojis. You can make it move over the screen and make all these elements dynamic. So the whole background color changes, or only the numbers, or I would say there's basically no limit. And also they are quite easy to do if you don't do it from scratch. If you download the sample report from the knowledge base, then you already have an HTML code, copy paste into the model, of course, change the names of the tables and columns from your data model. And then it's just knowing where to replace some of the values, and you can create a very unique KPI card. All right. What else? This is actually also from a real life report where one of our clients wanted to have, it wasn't actually stock market, but it was something similar. Just like you sometimes see on, I don't know, CNN Finance, just move over the screen right on TV, but in the report. And this is just also a standard HTML tag. The code, I don't want to talk about the code in detail because it's always more or less the same principles. What is used in here is this marquee function. which makes the text scroll. And of course, you can define the speed of the scrolling, the direction in which it is scrolling, all that kind of things you can define. Normally, I would say you would hard code this. You don't want the user to interact with it, but basically just for fun, I added slicers so you can change the scroll direction, left to right, or using actually a what if parameter, the scroll speed. So very super fast or very slow. This is done with a what if parameter, which is generated by this, which can use a number, in this case, between 0 and 100. I would say normally this is just playing around, but just to showcase what you can actually, what could be made dynamic. Also, you might want to have, and I've seen this also in a real life report where there was a page added which just had a lot of explanations of how the report should be used. And they had the same information on an intranet page, but instead of using a link to the page, they just copy pasted the entire HTML code from the website and then had a description with embedded icons, actually not only icons, but also when I click here, this would really download this sample file. Of course, this happens on my other screen. Let me just close this browser window. So now it should. It really also links work. So you can download files, link to websites, all that kind of thing. And here, basically, this is just, it's a lot of HTML. So this was just copy pasted from the website. On the website, you can right click and say show source code, depending on what browser you're using, and then get lots and lots of HTML code. So I didn't write this, you do design it in a web page tool and then just copy paste, and it will render exactly like what you have on the page. Or how about embedding videos? Embedding videos is also something I saw for user to explain how the report should be used. You can see here the report or the video doesn't play. The video does not play in Power BI Desktop. But as soon as I publish the report, and I will just quickly publish it, videos play. And that's just due to the fact that Power BI Desktop is not a browser. It just simply doesn't support all functionalities. And also for videos, it really depends whether the location of the video matters. So some video platforms don't allow this. Some allow it. YouTube, it just doesn't allow it. Vimeo, yes, you can do it. So it just depends. Sometimes for some platforms it works, for some it doesn't. So on Power BI Service, embedded videos can also be played. Power BI Desktop, it doesn't work. And also, I don't think it will ever work. This is just a limitation of Power BI Desktop. Not only videos can be embedded and pictures and all that other stuff, but also animated GIFs. And the GIF here, it's quite simple. It's the HTML code is just image source, and then there is a GIF file stored on the K-Team web page, and it's only indicating, how big it should be, 1300 pixels. But actually what I want to show on this page is not just that you can add animated GIFs, but this is something that what you actually can see in the GIF is something that I really recommend. It's whenever you navigate to a report that you have sort of a landing page where you show the most important KPIs. And there it's quite nice to also add dynamic text so everybody understands what is happening. And again, of course, indicate negative effects red. So when I change whatever slicer or filter and see something red, I know that this is what I need to pay attention to. This is the page I should navigate to next. So landing page is quite a nice thing. Then you might ask, so where would you actually add these? How would you create the HTML text? Because I don't know HTML. And the good thing is you don't really need to know a lot of HTML. There's different ways how you can create the code. For me personally, the easiest way would be to use Power Apps. With Power Apps, you can do it. Also, there is online translators where you can just, type something and make it bold and format it differently, and it will generate the HTML code. But I really enjoy using Power Apps to do that because you can really have it installed in your environment and add comments for. So when I add a comment in this Power Apps, you select the month you want to add it for. You select, well, the year, the business unit. Let's add it for, I don't know, marketing, December 2020. And then you say result above budget. You could format this and make it heading and say, I don't know, plus 100 due to this fact and minus 50 due to other fact. And maybe also make this positive effect green, the negative one, you make it red. Save the comment, and this is now stored in a SharePoint list. And when I go to the report, and let me just refresh, maybe I don't refresh the entire report, but only this table, comment from SharePoint list. This comment is then automatically part of the report. And of course, it's also dynamic, right? So when I select business unit, what was it? Not even sure. I'm sure we added it for 2020 and December. Marketing. Marketing, this is now the text we just entered. And with Power Apps also, with the combination with Power Apps and Power Automate, you could have even an approval process behind. So I write the comment, but actually my manager needs to approve before it gets into the report, stuff like that. Okay. One thing I want to also note is that, well, first of all, this page looks like there's something wrong. Why is that? It's the same issue that we had with the video. Power BI Desktop, simply not a full browser. So some elements don't display. In here is an embedded iframe element. And within the iframe is a website. And once this is published, I'll also quickly show you the code. So it's only one line of code, I would say. Well, some explanations, but then actually, this is the iframe where I embed a website. And once it's published, like we see here, you can really embed whole websites in a report. And then I'd like to say something about security, because, you know, well, technically custom visuals, they are in a separate iframe window within Power BI service. And the functionality is quite limited by Microsoft just for security reasons. So yes, I can look at the website and I can even navigate, and, you know, the menu works and most of the things work. But just as an example, what I can't do is I cannot submit something. So I just add whatever and try to submit this form. Things like this are just for security reasons not possible. So the iframe is limited to what Microsoft allows you to do. You cannot communicate outside of this iframe. Actually, what's happening on this page is something that, in case you're already working with custom visuals, you might have the issue that whenever you add the visual again in the report, you need to enter a license key. And if you do this all the time, it might be, you know, time consuming and annoying. What actually you can do is you can add information like the license key within the JSON theme file of the Power BI report. So what we created on the website is this page where you can navigate to and then enter license key and email address. And then with Power Automate in the background, I'll just open it quickly. A file like this is generated, which is a theme file for Power BI, which includes the license key. And once you add it to the report, whenever the visual is added again to the report view, the license key is automatically already in there, which might save you some time, especially in case you use a lot of custom visuals and have had this issue before. Okay, so now I said something about license. Of course, this visual has some free functionality, so you can use it.
Sorry, Pascal.
Yes, sure.
We also have a question about licensing in chat. If you can look in it.
So maybe after what I'm saying now, the question will be answered. I want to talk a lot about licensing. Yes, there is a license that you need for full functionality. In the limited version, which is free, you limit it to a certain number of characters in the DAX code or in the HTML code. And the additional formatting settings are not available. With also, of course, there is a 30-day free trial license, which you can get on the website you saw in the beginning. And yeah, I would say that, well, everybody needs to decide for themselves, but I would say compared to some other visuals out there, we have quite a fair pricing strategy, I would say. So you get some additional formatting settings. I want to point out some of them. For example, what's important to know is that whenever something is defined in HTML, a color or a font size, then the HTML definition is the one which is used. So when I change the font color to blue now, this changes to blue. When I change it the size, it also changes. So that all works perfectly fine. What if I do this in here? What if I go in here and say, oh, actually, I want everything not green, but blue? It doesn't change because whatever I have defined in HTML stays the way it was defined in HTML. Only the text here, which is just the default color, blue, is changed. And it's the same for the font size. It's the same for all the settings, basically. Exactly. Other than that, there's a few more settings that can be used, but I guess they're quite self-explanatory, I would say. Good. Then in the beginning, I said that I want to focus on HTML text style, which I now showed, well, at least some of the functionality. As said, there's just so much more. Whatever you think it might be useful for, there's more use cases. But I want to give a sneak peek about two other visuals, just very briefly, because they're still in development and I'm testing at the moment. One visual which is similar to the HTML text style, but also understands CSS, SVG, and a tiny little bit of JavaScript, which lets you do things like this, where you can dynamically change pictures or images. So this was also from a real project where somebody needed to track how much of a certain commodity of oil and diesel and so on they had in containers located in different locations. Or you could do, you're not limited to a specific picture, but anything really. So on this page, I have a zebra, which is filling up depending on what number I select here, but also the number of stars is dynamic down here. I think in this one, I dynamically changed the budget number and the size of the bar, or a visual like this. So it's not only that you can create your own KPI card, but you could create this visual that if you want to have something rated with a star, or a visual like this or that, or also the one on top here, but this one is still work in progress. It doesn't always work properly yet. I need to keep working on this one up here. But all this is done with exactly the same visual, just of course, different code, different HTML and CSS and SVG code in there. But this time I'm not going to go into code because it's quite tricky, and you can do things like this, dynamic, sliders, or lots of stuff. Just some examples. And also, and this I think is something that I personally like, because I've seen a lot of financial reports where balance sheets were not shown in a nice way. So this is a visual which could be used to show balance sheet where you have two side asset liabilities, and we can drill down and compare and change number format and drill all the way down to the account level and up again, and still work in progress. I'm testing it, and there's some bugs that need to be fixed, of course, and there's also some other people testing it. And just to give a sneak peek of what's currently happening at K-Team Solutions. Good. That was all of the pages which I had in the report. Yeah, I hope you saw that it's a quite versatile and hopefully powerful visual. Please go ahead and download the sample report from the webpage, which contains a lot of the samples we saw now. And, it might hopefully inspire you, and maybe you have even better ideas of what can be done with it. Because what I showed was just some examples, some things that I came up, or some things that our clients came up, and then, but it's really, it's limitless. There's so much more that can be done. Did we get any other questions?
Yes. So if we could, so thank you so much, Pascal. It was really, really exciting and interesting.
Thank you. My pleasure.
And just for those who are not familiar with the HTML code showed, so it's really quite simple, and you could find examples and syntax on internet. So it looks maybe a little bit like coding, but it's not so much coding. It's just copy pasting.
Absolutely, it looks like coding. If you want to, with the sample report that you can download, you can really do a lot with copy paste and just, you know, change small things in the code and get it to work for what you do. Maybe one thing I should also mention is that that's also one of the main reasons why this visual doesn't come for free, because support is offered as well. So to a certain extent, there's a thin line between support and consulting, right? But we're also happy to help with DAX code, HTML code. So just reach out to myself or via the website. And then if you struggle with setting something up, hopefully we can help you out. At least we'll try our best.
Yeah, just in chat we're receiving that. Thank you very much. It's really cool. It was really cool. Also cool.
Okay.
Last part, look at like a nice way to create style custom visuals. So yeah. So yeah.
Yeah, I guess that's this visual here is there's a lot you can do. Anything. So I have a couple of other ideas. For example, I'm thinking about having, you know, a floor plan of a building or of an airport or an office building, and then maybe color different rooms in different colors depending on, or stuff like that. I haven't really gone through to find the time to really do this, but there's a lot of ideas of what you could potentially do with that. But yeah, this just needs a little bit more code, much more code, let's say. But once it's set up, you can create your, sort of like you create your own custom visual with a custom visual.
Yeah, it looks really great. Okay. So I think if there's no more questions, so thank you very much, Pascal. Once again.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
And we hope you to see sometime, maybe in near future again. And
would be nice, sure.
Okay, then thanks everyone. Yeah, have a nice evening and see you next time.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Cheers.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Cheers.